Hey, what is up? So, in honor of the recent announcement of the 6th and final season of Better Call Saul, for this video, I actually wanted to go all the way back to Season 3 of Breaking Bad and talk about a plot detail that was displayed to us in the episode entitled Abacu regarding the backstory of Gus Fring that actually kind of still bugs me to this day. And interestingly, I've actually never made a video on this subject matter regarding this potential plot hole surrounding Gus Fring. But since we're heading into the very final season of Better Call Saul, we're going to finally see the conclusion of many plots and storylines that have been developing over the course of 5 entire seasons. For this video, I thought it would be appropriate to finally address this potential plot hole. So anyway, without getting into too much specific detail of this scene and the dialogue that occurs here, in Season 3 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled Abacu, Walter White goes to Gus Fring's house, following Walt becoming a full-on business partner with Gus Fring following the renewal of his initial 3 months for $3 million contract that he had with Gus Fring at the beginning of the season. This is actually the very first time we see Gus Fring's house in the plot of Breaking Bad. Now, irrespective of all the details and the plot that's going on directly in this scene of Breaking Bad, there is a very specific piece of dialogue here that was brought up by Gus Fring regarding him having children that since then has never been discussed in the plot of Breaking Bad or the plot of Better Call Saul. Here in this scene regarding the dish he's making, Paella Marina, a Chilean fish stew, Gus states to Walt that he rarely has the opportunity to make this dish because, quote-unquote, the kids won't eat it. So yeah, it appears that according to the canon of Breaking Bad, it appears that Gus Fring has children. But what's interesting is since this one scene and this one clearly piece of throwaway dialogue at the time regarding Gus Fring's children, these children have never been brought up again in the plot of either show. Interestingly, we can even see into Gus Fring's house in this scene, and we can see sort of children's toys and even what appears to be a sort of desk that would be made for children to sit at, small children, further indicating that Gus Fring has children. Now, of course, what I think happened is, at the time back in Season 3 of Breaking Bad, there is absolutely no way that the full backstory of Gus Fring had been developed and thought up at this time in the plot of the show. Now, while initially this doesn't really seem like a very big deal, the fact that this throwaway dialogue has never been mentioned since in the plot of Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, following the whole Hermanos plot, where it's been more than strongly implied that Gus Fring and Max Arciniega were more than just business partners, it's actually pretty strongly implied that they were homosexual lovers. I think that this sort of kid throwaway dialogue kind of throws a wrinkle into the desired plot of the creators in regards to the backstory of Gus Fring. Because in my opinion, while it is theoretically possible that Gus Fring has children, and even though there's no dialogue outside of this one scene and we could theoretically take an unlimited number of artistic liberties to sort of explain away this piece of throwaway dialogue, I think, of course, at the time, it was just that throwaway dialogue. But, of course, since the sort of very in-depth and complex backstory plot of Max Arciniega and Gus Fring, not to mention that this plot basically makes up the entirety of Gus Fring's plot in the plot of Better Call Saul, this sort of long concocted revenge against the cartel, which I've discussed in many previous videos. I really feel like this children line kind of really sort of takes away from that. Again, it's not a huge deal, and like I've talked about, there's a lot of plot holes in the plot of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Kaylee Ehrmantraut's age, it just comes to mind right off the top of my head. Not to mention the enormous number of plot holes in regards to the timeline of these two shows, which I also made an entire video about that you can go back and watch if you want. But yeah, at the end of the day, while this one piece of plot detail really doesn't make sense to me, based on the backstory of Gus Fring and Max Arciniega that's been developed over the course of Better Call Saul, it's really hard to imagine Gus Fring having children, not to mention the 2 other times that we've seen shots of Gus Fring's house in Season 4 of Breaking Bad, in the episode entitled Bug, where Jesse goes over for dinner, and additionally in Season 4 of Better Call Saul in the episode entitled Something Stupid, where we see Dr. Bruckner having dinner at Gus Fring's house just like Jesse and Walt did. Again, in these 2 scenes of Gus Fring's house, there really is no indication that Gus Fring has children. All of the toys and sort of children's paraphernalia is removed from these scenes. But yeah, now following the backstory of Better Call Saul, I think that this throwaway dialogue, which is just that, was just a piece of throwaway dialogue at the time. I really feel like it just doesn't mesh that well with the plot of Gus Fring heading into season 6 of Better Call Saul. Because we all know, especially based on the episode entitled Dedicado a Max, it really seems that Gus Fring is so myopically focused on this plot of revenge against the Salamancas, and that he is so deeply affected by the death of Max that really it totally consumes him, and it completely defines his entire reason for being, what he's doing on a daily basis to get revenge against the Salamancas. I really just feel like now in hindsight, following this revelation of Gus Fring and this focus on revenge, it just really doesn't gel that well with me. The fact that even though Gus Fring seeks this revenge, he somehow had time to raise children or have children in some capacity following the death of Max. It really just doesn't quite sit well with me based on the fact of just how much Max meant to him. To me, I really don't see Gus Fring being able to raise children without him. And again, he seems way more focused on revenge, and this children plot really doesn't make sense to me now with the benefit of hindsight in the plot of Better Call Saul. But at the end of the day, I think this may just be a plot hole that's never really addressed by the creators of Better Call Saul, especially since the fact that there's so much plot to cover in these final 13 episodes. I mean, we could go on and on. We need to see the conclusion of the plot of Lalo, Nacho, Jimmy, that whole backstory. We need to see the conclusion of the plot of Kim Wexler. We need to see what's going to happen with the plot of the Super Lab. Again, I can go on and on and on. But at the end of the day, due to the fact that there's a fair number of plot holes, and in reality, this isn't really the biggest one in the world, I think at the end of the day, the creators are probably just going to let this one slide. Like I said, it doesn't take away from the greatness of Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad as a television show, but at this point in time, it definitely appears to be somewhat of a plot hole, despite the fact that we could probably take some artistic liberties to explain away this scene if we really wanted to. Alright, again, that's all I really got. It's great to start making videos again about Better Call Saul in preparation of Season 6. As always, my name is Anton Jackson. Thanks again for watching.